Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, and thanks once again for joining us for Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. On satellite imagery today, the only action is down there in the southeast coast of the Panhandle, storminess rolling on up, this portion moving faster off to the east than this is moving off to the north. So all the snow, the winter storm warnings for the heavy snow continues there, mostly now for the northern portion of the southeast coast through 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, back to the west, a lot of sunshine, a few clouds here, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, and maybe a few snow showers might have shown up around Fognac Island at the east side of Kodiak Island. Otherwise, nothing significant. Plenty of sunshine, Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, and more clouds out to the west there, but still pretty dry. Real narrow band of actually just cirrus now with that one which was a front right through here, and then really not much going on in the interior here, and then more moisture with some light snow and flurries coming onto the Arctic coast all the way down to the North Slope. Meanwhile, high pressure still dominating the Bering Sea out here for we can see a lot of clearing with the hole in the clouds there, and actually this back up through here is mostly sea ice, definitely that for Bristol Bay. But light winds all across the area, no storming at all to speak of. So really nice conditions, light winds all the way out to the Komodorsky Islands. And rolling that through again, you can see the center roughly right in this position here. So we've got moisture coming up on the northwest side there through the Russian Far East, up and over, and that's sliding on across the Arctic coast North Slope areas. And that'll continue probably for the next day or so. With not much change, basically northerly winds, northeast winds kicked up a little bit here, gusts to 40 miles an hour along the coast, on down to the eastern Aleutians, but lighter up to the north and back to the west. Ridging down across the Aleutians made for pretty good conditions as far as light winds go, and seas not all that bad. Even along the North Gulf Coast, really not much in the way of breezy conditions at all, but wind and rain now over the southern Panhandle, all snow to the north, and again that winter storm warning out till about 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon here, mostly for the shaded area that's in the turquoise there, with it mostly rain down to the south there, warmer air coming in, but look for an additional 8 to 15 inches of snow from now until 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, with of course the heaviest amounts up in the higher elevations, but snow spreading westward, could get into the Yakutat area, eastern side of the Wrangell Mountains. And then some flurries will linger up here over the eastern Tanana Valley, possibly from about Delta on down to North Wyandotte, but that's that usual real light flurry type condition, and mostly cloudy up over the interior, and then another batch of snow up there along the eastern North Slope areas from the Brooks Range, probably Arctic Village, trailing on back to the northwest coast, northeast winds, offshore flow, VFR skies here across the, well, into the Bering Sea, and probably back up across St. Lawrence Island as well. And no change for the Bering out here. High pressure holding over the area, and not even any storminess making it onto the map there. Even up here to the north, not much more coming down. Could be some flurries at times, but it'll be really light and probably just of the marginal VFR variety. And looking ahead to for tomorrow, we've got another low will roll up into the northern Panhandle. So again, warmest air, rainfall over the southern areas, a mix in between, snow continuing to, well, as I mentioned, through 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon here for the northern areas. Eventually that rain snow line shifting northward a little bit there, but snow for Yakutat, a little bit more moisture working into the eastern Copper River Basin, mostly along the mountains there, but I think it'll stay east of Cordova. Sunshine, Susitna Valley, Matanuska Valley, all the way down across Cook Inlet and the Kenai Peninsula. Variably cloudy here for Kodiak Island with increasing northwest winds there for the Barren Islands back into Kamishak Bay. And then trough coming southward here pushes that band of snow tonight. Will be up over the Brooks Range and North Slope, south and southeastward there, right into the Koyukuk Valley, back up to the eastern Brooks Range. A break behind that. High pressure holding pretty good there out over the Bering Sea. And again, no storms in sight out there, at least through tomorrow and probably Tuesday as well. So you look at light winds, fair skies, sunshine, although coming down from the north here, actually sliding out of the Russian Far East. Some of this moisture could bring some snow showers into the Pribilof Islands Tuesday, but nothing very heavy at all, just more clouds definitely. But looks like a band of light snow along the west coast there, St. Lawrence Island and the Seward Peninsula up across the Noatak Valley to the central Arctic coast. And then pretty good dry conditions there, eastern Brooks Range into the Koyukuk Valley. Dry and windy here, especially along the Alaska Range and the passes there, right down across Kodiak Island. Gale force winds back in the forecast there and holding through the Barren Islands as well. Looks like more gradients, so expect the winds to come up here for Cook Inlet, northern Cook Inlet, north 25 knots on Tuesday. And about the same there for Prince William Sound. A few more clouds there into Prince William Sound. Now some of that lingering moisture breaking up, but we might see some real light stuff heading eastward, maybe to the Talkeetnas, and then off and on back to the border. But the more persistent, heavier snowfall will be from roughly Cape Yakataga across Yakutat and holding over the northern southeast coast with a mixture on down to the south. Metlakatla, Ketchikan, those areas definitely rain, but as you notice, the winds will be a lot lighter with less gradient as the main front pushes off to the east and the cold air getting pushed back to the north. So even the winds in Lynn Canal will be coming down from the gales they've had for several days now, down to about 25 knots, I believe is in the forecast for Tuesday. Otherwise, temperatures down across the Panhandle today from the lower 20s north to already up to 42 degrees down at Klawock this afternoon with that warmer southeast wind. 27 Petersburg, 31 degrees there at Yakutat, and about the same in Cordova, 28 Portage. Lower 30s for the Susitna Valley and upper 20s here for Cook Inlet and Kenai Peninsula. Lower to mid 30s Kodiak Island, teens there, Copper River Basin, and around 10 degrees here over the eastern interior this afternoon. Fairbanks up to 11. And Tanana had 15. Farther north, Bettles 12 degrees, 19 at Fort Yukon. Same thing at Arctic Village. And mostly all above zero for the Arctic coast there, although Atasuk had -1, but Cape Lisburne 19 above. Single numbers struggling to reach 10 degrees here over the northwest, but Nome did push up to 15. 21 at McGrath. And a 22 out there at Amonic, while Unalakleet had 15 and 18 at Bethel, 29 at Savunga. Pribilof's lower 30s this afternoon. Atka popping up to 45 degrees, but Adak only at 39. Lower 30s on Alaska, Alaska Peninsula to the lower 20s up toward King Salmon. And for the lows tonight, above freezing here, Prince of Wales Island, and definitely across to Atka, or not to Atka, to Ketchikan and Metlakatla there, staying above freezing tonight with chillier conditions, definitely up to the north, 16 degrees there towards Skagway, and 20 to 25 below here for the extreme eastern interior with below zero temperatures again in the Tanana Valley. Single numbers to teens here for south central Alaska, all the way out to the coast, 20s Alaska Peninsula, and 15 to 20 below from the North Slope and Arctic coast. Highs for tomorrow, probably back into the mid 40s here for Prince of Wales Island, otherwise upper 30s, cooling into the upper 20s on to the north. Above zero again, maybe up to 10 for the eastern interior, mid to upper 20s south central Alaska, mid 30s Kodiak Island and the peninsula, lower 40s in the Aleutians. And it looks like north of the Brooks Range, mostly below zero. Flying weather for tomorrow afternoon, showing lingering IFR here over the southern southeast coast. Areas of marginal up along the North Gulf Coast there in and around Yakutat. And again, with that moisture coming eastward there, So come the lower flying conditions, otherwise just patchy marginal stuff in the interior. Arctic coast looking really good, and IFR pretty well socked in for St. Lawrence Island, right on down, but not quite making it to the coast, except for the Yukon Delta. And for passes, Anaktuvik, VFR tomorrow, and Adigan as well, back to the VFR conditions. Lake Clark, Merrill, no change, VFR, same forecast for rainy, and no change for windy as well. Isabel, that should have been Mentasta's forecast. Isabel will be VFR the entire day, and Mentasta going marginal, possibly with that moisture backing in from the east there out of Canada. So you could go marginal tomorrow afternoon, possibly. And then on to Tanita, that should be just flat out VFR also. And Portage VFR with Chilkoot and White hanging on to IFR probably well into the afternoon, if not by early evening. And then for the freezing levels, warmer air edging its way northward. This is for late tonight, early tomorrow morning. 4,000 feet though, up to about Port Alexander over to Wrangell, but still at the surface there around Juneau, south of Yakutat to Kodiak Island to the Pribilofs, and then with a big upper level high, 4,000 feet out over the far western Aleutians. And for icing, nothing out there, no storminess at all or moisture, and a patch up here over the upper Yukon Valley, above about 2,000 feet, light rime, and maybe mixed to rime icing of about 4,000 feet there for the entire southeast coast. Again, trying to advance to the west. And for the upper level wind flow chart, upper low here near Yakutat and counterclockwise flow, easterly flow on the north side of that, that's going to be pulling that moisture westward. Otherwise, northerly winds, 120 knots, drop back to 70 knots to the peninsula there. Big area high pressure holding out over the Bering Sea. And at 9,000 feet, northerly winds here, 35, starting out about 20 knots there around Deering, and then up to 35 knots for the Delta, 50 knots there around King Salmon, and then that dropping back to 25 to 30. Good southerlies here for the Panhandle, but the stronger winds mostly shifting eastward into Canada and lighter to the west, and just basically light winds sweeping around that huge area high pressure out over the Bering. 3,000 feet, same pattern, 15 to 20 knots, all the way down to the Pribilofs. Pretty light out to the west along the chain. Up along the Arctic coast, 15 to 25 knots, stronger off the coast there though, and light winds over the interior. Could be up to 30 knots here near the Alaska Range, otherwise pretty light and variable, and the stronger winds exiting the southeast coast. So moving on to turbulence, that'll be the pattern with that too, as turbulence improves here along much of the Panhandle, but lingering along the eastern border there through tomorrow afternoon, smooth to the North Gulf Coast, and then mechanical turbulence here. Pretty good chance of moderate chop there, northeast Bristol Bay, right up along the Alaska Range, maybe the Kilbrook Mountains, Tuscarora Bay, and also for the Alaska Peninsula. Light to isolated moderate chop, central eastern Arctic coast. And after the break, I'll be back with the ice edge and marine forecasts.
At the Geophysical Institute, scientists monitor earthquake data from several hundred seismic sensing stations across Alaska. When a seismic disturbance occurs, this data is instantly transmitted to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's West Coast and Alaska Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, Alaska. Scientists on 24-hour call quickly analyze that data, along with data from their own network of sensors, and decide whether or not they should issue a tsunami warning.
When we see a large earthquake has occurred and it's occurred near the coast, we'll issue a warning to those who could be affected by the wave within a certain amount of time. And then we'll monitor the wave to see if it really was dangerous or not, and if it was dangerous, then we'll expand the warning to all the people that it may be dangerous for.
You can improve warning systems. You can do that a number of ways. One of the most obvious is by providing better hardware to measure earthquakes more accurately, but also to measure directly the tsunami itself.
As part of the DART project, Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunamis, NOAA has developed a system of 6 ocean buoys which help measure a potential tsunami. Attached to the buoys are pressure sensors on the ocean bottom that can detect tsunamis passing overhead. The sensors instantly beam the data via satellite to NOAA's tsunami warning centers in Palmer and Ewa Beach, Hawaii.
I work with the state seismologists and other seismologists in our Alaska Earthquake Information Center to generate the hypothetical earthquake scenarios.
These what-if scenarios are used to produce very practical products. One of them is called an inundation map.
Inundation maps are critical to defining evacuation zones and routes so that coastal communities can respond quickly in the event of a tsunami. These deceptively simple maps show the highest point of flooding by a potential tsunami, but a mind-numbing amount of data is needed to generate them. It is only with the advent of the supercomputer that researchers finally had the tool they needed to take tsunami research to the next level. In the mid-1990s, Alaska Sea Grant funded a research project by University of Alaska Fairbanks scientists Zygmunt Kowalik and Elena Suleimani. They worked with the Arctic Region Supercomputing Center at UAF to create a model of an event that occurred over 120 years ago.
The first effort to test a tsunami model was to model the 1883 wave that was generated by the eruption of St. Augustine volcano, that is an island volcano in Cook Inlet.
When the volcano erupted, part of the mountain crashed into the sea and generated a wave that raced across Cook Inlet and partially flooded the village of English Bay. A logbook kept by the Alaska Commercial Company Trading Post at English Bay documents the sudden inundation.
On this morning at 8:15 o'clock, 4 tidal waves flowed with a westerly current, one following the other at the rate of 30 miles per hour, the sea rising 20 feet above the usual level.
Kowalik and Suleimani's analysis of that event resulted in a computer model that has been refined and is now used to create inundation maps for Alaska coastal towns. This supercomputer animation shows how several tsunamis inundated the U.S. Navy base in Kodiak after the 1964 earthquake. The red area indicates maximum inundation. Projections like this are used to create inundation maps.
The goal of our work in inundation mapping is to make coastal Alaska a safer place to live. And I think our major goal is to save lives.
Some shrewd detective work helped the researchers refine their computer model. Geologist and tsunami expert Dr. Gary Carver collected geological clues and considered eyewitness accounts to work up an accurate picture of what actually happened when the tsunamis hit Kodiak in 1964.
In this area, the wave came up this bay, and we have here some of the very best information concerning how large the 1964 wave was. This is also an area where we modeled the wave as a way of calibrating the modeling exercise. And what we found is that in this particular case, the modeled wave departed somewhat from what we know to be the actual area that the wave covered. But in reality, we know from the sand deposits and from the eyewitness accounts that the wave ran back into the trees, into the vicinity of those many houses and buildings back there. And so here's a place where we were able to use the geologic evidence and the historic evidence to calibrate the model.
If we get a big tsunami in this community, similar to what the University of Alaska Fairbanks researchers have told us, this waterfront will be gone. Our goal is to protect community residents and do the best we can to protect infrastructure. And by knowing where the wave may come, based on the information from the scientists, we've got a much better chance of preparing the community for dealing with that. But we've also tried to really educate the community that there are some instances that could cause a tsunami, and the sirens may not go off because we may not have gotten word that from the Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer that in fact a tsunami is on its way, and that would be one that would be locally generated by a local earthquake. And what we tell people is if they have trouble standing up for 15 seconds or the earthquake lasts for longer than 30 seconds, they should evacuate. They shouldn't wait for the siren to go off.
To help people in towns like Kodiak understand the threat and prepare for the next tsunamis, the NOAA National Weather Service runs an information program in partnership with the Alaska Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management called the Tsunami Ready Program.
Seward, Alaska was designated as the first tsunami-ready community within the state. The Alaska Division of Emergency Services and the city government got together via the fire chief and the assistant city manager and worked to bring us into uniform plan for evacuation and informational distribution to all of the citizens within the area.
This is a test of the emergency siren system.
This is only a test.
It means that we can get the word out to the people. We have all of the warning systems in place. We receive the information and we can pass that on to the people in town and be able to get them into an area of safety in case of tsunamis.
For the sourdough Alaskans who survived the ocean's fury in 1964, a real-life nightmare is burned into their memories. They know what tsunamis can do. But most of us were not here back then, when the black waves of March tore into our shores and swept away more than 100 souls. We would do well to learn from the experience of our fellow Alaskans. Because as the scientists assure us, it is not a question of if, but when the next tsunami will strike our coastline.
Welcome back. Ice analysis today really hasn't changed much over the last 2 or 3 days. Still up here near the St. Matthew Island area, and with the northerly winds continuing for the next several days, it should advance southward slowly, but no big strides on down to the south. So it'll close in on St. Paul Island there, but it's still about 80 nautical miles to the north, so it's got a long ways to go. On to the marine forecast here for the southeast coast tomorrow. Northeast winds turn west 25 to the north there. All contingent on those passing lows coming northward here. It looks like northerly gales 40 knots continue for northern Lynn Canal. Southeast, small craft advisories for the central and southern inside waters. And then for Tuesday, it looks like generally a southeast wind flow, depending on which model you look at. And at least at this point in time, small craft advisories out of the east for the extreme north coast, but those winds for Lynn Canal coming down, definitely down to 25 knots. Southeast 20 increasing to 25 knots for Clarence Strait. And for Cook Inlet, north of the Forelands, 15 knots out of the north or northeast. Same forecast for Prince William Sound. 20 knot northeasterlies turn into northerlies at 25. Northwest 40 for the Barren Islands. Excuse me, and northwest 25 knots, so small craft advisory, Shelikof Strait, east side of Kodiak Island, and Kachemak Bay. And then winds will increase to 25 knots, so brisk wind advisories out for Cook Inlet for Tuesday. Prince William Sound, though, north 15, but probably some higher gusts out of the bays, and northeast 20, northwest 40, again for the Barren Islands. Gales now along the east side of Kodiak Island out of the north. And for Bristol Bay, north winds 30 knots. Turn northeast tomorrow, 25 for the peninsula. Gale warnings out from Castle Cape to Sitkinak. And that holds through Tuesday as well. Not much change there. Northerlies 25 knots, strongest south of the peninsula, 20 to 25 knots with the strongest over Bristol Bay. And then for the Aleutians, small craft advisories for the Fox Islands, especially Unalaska Island for tomorrow. Just 15 to 20 knots here, staying light for the central Aleutians, and really light winds out toward Chimney and Attu as well. And then the next day, not a lot of change out there. Southeast at about 20, big area high pressure holding to the north. Light winds for the central Aleutians, and then 20 to 25 knots there out of the north for Unalaska Island. For the Bering Sea here and the coast, north winds on the light side starting out at 10 knots for St. Lawrence Island, 20 knots south of Nunivak Island, and then northerlies about 10 to 20 here out over the Bering Sea. Outlook for Tuesday, northwest now 10 to 15, pretty light up there for the northern Bering, 20 knotters here south of Nunivak Island, as well as the Pribilofs. And moving up to the Arctic coast there, on the west side, west winds at about 15 knots, and then the eastern Beaufort Sea, southwest 15, picking up to about 20 knots over toward Demarcation Point. And looking at the outlook for Tuesday, light northwesterlies here from Cape Beaufort all the way down to the Bering Strait, just 10 to 15. Light westerlies start kicking it up to maybe 15 on the central coast, and then southwest 15 to 20, again with the strongest winds toward Demarcation Point. And looking at tonight's forecast, lots of moisture with low pressure here off the southeast coast, slowly moving northward. Winter storm warnings out for the central areas on up to the north for another 8 to 15 inches of snow from this evening until the warning either ends at 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, or they'll kick it out longer. But different story down south with the warmer air, rain falling, and clear skies south central Alaska. This area of snow up there to the north drops southeastward with an upper level disturbance coming over the top of the big ridge that holds out here over the Bering Sea both Monday and Tuesday. Strong offshore flow keeps a good VFR here over the southwest interior on out off the coast, and same conditions here at the Alaska Peninsula. Snow advancing westward tomorrow and holding over the northern panhandle, but becoming mixed, and rain to the south with lighter winds. And then this low here will track right up to there for Tuesday afternoon. A low still parked in the Gulf. Southwest flow keeps it wet with a wintry mix across the panhandle. More snow with this front out to the west. Otherwise, not much change over the interior. Have a great evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.